One of the greatest obstacles to crafting health and wellness is identifying and controlling inflammation. It's at the core of all complex and chronic diseases, and it's the driving mechanism that underlies the most common symptoms that people like you struggle to overcome. Join us as we explore cutting-edge science and research to give you the information and tools you need to create the quality of life you want and deserve. And now, here is the host of Inflammation Nation, Dr. Stephen Noseworthy.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Inflammation Nation podcast. We're still talking about this concept of autonomous health and this idea of being autonomous or independent of conventional medicine requires you to think differently. Albert Einstein once said that the level of thinking that's required to solve a problem is different than the thinking that you're using when the problem was created. That's a paraphrase. He didn't say it exactly like that. And, while Einstein was a theoretical physicist and obviously wasn't talking specifically about your health, the underlying concept still applies. In my last podcast episode, I shared another quote, which was from Thomas Jefferson. And again, I'm paraphrasing, but it says something like, if you want something that you don't have, you have to do something that you're not doing. And this is hard for us because most of us are trained from a very young age that when we're sick, we run to the doctor, right? We look for a pill for whatever it is that ails us. So if we have a sniffle, maybe someone says you need like an antibiotic. If you have high cholesterol, you need a statin drug. If you have high blood pressure, you need blood pressure meds and so on. And because of this training, or maybe I should say brainwashing, we tend to think that even on the natural side of things, that there is a natural pill for every ill. And when someone starts to entertain some form of natural medicine, they tend to import this medical type thinking into the world of natural medicine. And what we end up with is what we call green medicine. And green medicine is where you simply look for an herb or a vitamin that does the same thing as a drug does. So instead of a statin drug for high cholesterol, maybe you do some research and you decide you're going to take red yeast rice extract. That one's always hard to say. And that, of course, that's a natural compound that can work to lower your cholesterol just like a statin drug. And while it is natural, red yeast rice extract is actually a natural statin. So you're just trading a statin for a statin, and it will do things that the drug does, not just lower cholesterol, potentially. It can also deplete CoQ10, which is important for energy production. And it's also possible to use the natural statin called red yeast rice extract and develop muscle pain, what's called statin myopathy. So muscle pain, just like the pharmaceutical drug does. Now, sometimes clients come to me and they'll say, well, I have this condition. What can I take for that? What herb or what vitamin should I take for that? Or they might say, what herb can I use to replace this drug that I'm on that I don't want to be on? And at that point, I have to step back and say, hold on a second. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Is it you want to take something natural because it has fewer side effects? Or do you think that the natural version of some drug is going to do something better or something different? And the internet has, of course, no lack of testimonials and reviews and recommendations for this herb or for that problem. And many of the groups that teach doctors natural medicine have the same problem. Natural doctors are being taught protocols based on conditions. So if you have a client with this condition, here's your herbal protocol. Or they're being trained to switch people from this drug to that herb. And none of that is functional medicine. Functional medicine also can't be boiled down to simple vitamin or mineral deficiencies, yet many practitioners who call themselves functional do just that. Right? They want to analyze your diet. They want to count up all the micronutrients, all the vitamins and the minerals, and see what you're missing so that they can give it to you as part of their prescription. And there are exceptions, but that approach is going to fail with anything more than just the simplest of cases. And so I'll say it again, that if you want something that you don't have, meaning regaining your wellness and your quality of life, you have to do something that you're not doing. Or maybe you have to do what you are doing differently. Please don't expect a magic or hope in the latest superfood fad and its ability to change your life if you haven't fixed what's broken. And this is one of the core distinctions of functional medicine, is about root causes. And by what's broken, I mean the myriad of diet and lifestyle modifications that might apply to you. Right? There are a lot of stressed out, anxious, sedentary people eating pro-inflammatory standard American diet or some version of that, staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, binge watching Netflix, asking people like me to prescribe a supplement protocol for their fatigue, for their weight gain, for their brain fog, for their insomnia, and the list can go on. And it just simply, it doesn't work that way. So maybe before you think about nutritional supplementation, maybe you should consider doing something different with your diet and your lifestyle. For example, and this is not direct advice, but if you haven't gone gluten and dairy free, then give it a shot. If you haven't done a low carb paleo diet, go for it. If you're not exercising, start walking. Maybe pick up something heavy a few times a week and see how that changes things for you. Now, in the interest of full transparency, when I take on a personal coaching client, I don't make them overhaul their diet and their lifestyles before we start with nutritional supplementation. I'm usually working in all three domains right away, right? Diet, lifestyle, and supplementation, or at least within a short period of time. But because of the logistics of the process, we might have a staggered start where we might get to work on someone's diet for a week, and then we get some labs back, and maybe we'll set up some supplementation right then. And all of that might be a few weeks before we talk about exercise or maybe sleep habits or even stress reduction. My point is that most of you listening probably have complex health issues that you can't expect to do or fix everything at once. But if you're going to do anything on your own, start first with your diet and your lifestyle before you think about finding that magic supplementation mix. The more complex your problem is, the less likely it is that any given supplementation protocol is going to help you, because it's trying to overcome the tremendous influence of not having your ideal diet or having negative lifestyle or environmental factors that are driving the bus. But maybe you've got a reasonable diet, or maybe you have a fair control over your lifestyle factors. In that case, supplementation might make sense. Sometimes your diet and lifestyle modifications don't work as well as you want because there's some kind of a metabolic problem that personalized supplementation can help you with. And I guess what I'm trying to say, perhaps not too eloquently, is that if you have a bad diet and haven't optimized your lifestyle, then that's where you start. But this is where we tend to see a lot of conflict between what you want and what's good for you. Now, if you're a parent, and even if you're not, I think you'll recognize what I'm trying to say here. But, again, if you're a parent, you may have heard yourself say to one of your children, or all of them at some point, I don't care if you don't like broccoli, you're going to eat it because it's good for you. And they're probably all guilty of that, or something very close to that. And I am the first to admit that I too struggle with what I want and what I know is good for me. I want to be able to eat cookies and ice cream and as much pizza as I want and any type of gluten I want. I want to be able to do all that and not suffer any consequences. I want to not have to work out and still have maybe a physique and a fitness level that I'm not ashamed of. I want to not have to take herbs or medications or anything special, yet still have good metabolic control as I age towards my early 60s. But those things are not good for me, so I don't. I've done the hard work of stepping back from what I want to ask myself, what do I need? And you might have listened to the episode where I talked about my own health challenges. I was overweight, hypertensive. I was pretty much a pre-diabetic with failing joints. I had a poor diet. I had stopped working out because life was too busy and demanding. And to be honest, I felt like crap. And yes, I too started looking for a magic supplement to fix my insulin resistance, to help me lose some weight without going to the gym or changing my diet. But little by little, piece by piece, I learned the things that I needed to know. The things that honestly I needed to hear that shifted my thought process away from how do I compensate for my poor diet and lifestyle choices with supplements to how do I identify my root causes and fix those things so that my body can start to heal itself. And then once I was on that path, I had to deal with the intermittent failure as I tried and failed and tried again and failed again and tried another time and did a little bit better than the last one. So I failed less until at some point I was consistently winning with the diet and the lifestyle choices that worked for me. And it was then and only then that the supplements that I had been taking all along that didn't help before, now all of a sudden they started to work because they weren't working against the bad diet and bad lifestyle. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong here. I'm not saying to not take any supplements until your diet and lifestyle are perfect, because that's going to take time to sort out. Mine certainly weren't. What I'm saying is that if you're thinking there is a supplement protocol that will override continued poor diet and lifestyle choices, then you're going to be disappointed somewhere along the way. There's a meme going around social media right now that I love, and it says, exercise is a celebration of what your body can do, and it's not a punishment for what you ate. Right? And this is how we start to shift our thinking to see things in a new light, such that what once was considered a chore, or as the meme says, a punishment, now becomes a tool, an opportunity, and maybe sometimes even a joy and a pleasure. Back when I was north of 240 pounds in constant pain, going to the gym sucked. And I mean with a capital S. I saw working out as that time when I was confronted with how out of shape that I had become. And it brought a lot of negative self-talk, which quite frankly became part of the problem. I had stopped looking at myself in the mirror because I didn't like what I saw. And every time that I had to let my belt out one more notch or start buying extra large sizes, I silently derided myself for being so fat and lazy. And I'm really not a cussing kind of guy. And I tell you, it was bad. But again, the more that I learned about why the right diet was the right diet, or how exercise done properly could change my biochemistry, help my brain, even change how my genes were expressing themselves, I realized that if I didn't make the necessary changes, I was going to be locked into a path that led me straight to relying on multiple medications for the rest of my life. And that was not what I wanted. I didn't believe in it. And I had become someone who the younger athlete version of me wouldn't recognize and couldn't even fathom. So I started to work backwards from my goal to my daily life and my choices. I started thinking what I didn't want anymore. I didn't want to be overweight. I didn't want high blood sugar. I didn't want high blood pressure or the mild depression that had crept in, and I didn't want to hurt anymore. And then I started to replace the image of myself that I hated every single day with the image that I wanted to create, or an image of the me that I wanted to create. So I started to picture myself as muscular and lean, fit, capable, optimistic, and so on. And then I had to ask myself, like, what was I doing that was contributing to the me that I didn't want to be? And how could changing those things lead me to the best version of me? And all of a sudden, I started to see diet and exercise as what I just had mentioned. They were tools to make change. They were opportunities to make improvements. And I started to realize that if I knew what to do and I didn't do it, that was all on me. It was nobody's fault but my own. And it was an opportunity lost. So for me, all of a sudden, for example, going gluten-free wasn't hard anymore because I had a clear understanding of what gluten was doing to my body and my brain. And it was inconsistent with the version of me that I wanted to be, that I was starting to strive for. And I realized that when I needed to go to the gym and I started negotiating with myself and rationalizing why it was okay not to go, I realized that that was the old me that was fighting for control, and the new me wasn't going to let that happen. It's that kind of stuff that lets you overcome the blahs, the indifference to poor health and those times when you're just simply not inspired enough to make the effort. So what's the main message for today? I don't want you to fall into any of the following traps. I don't want you, number one, to keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. I know you've heard that before. I don't want you to simply trade medications for herbal medicine without thinking about root causes. I don't want you to think that you can out supplement a bad diet or a lifestyle that's not working in your favor. I don't want you to dwell on where you are and how much you hate it. Instead, I want you to focus on where you're going and start to develop more commitment and passion about becoming the best version of you than the hatred that you have of where you are. Now, on that note, I'm going to leave you with this thought. I just recorded a podcast interview with a friend of mine, Dr. Sachin Patel, and this is for a doctor-focused podcast that I'm launching in a few days. And he said this. He said, there's a reason why the rear view mirror in your car is so small and your windshield is so large. It's because you can't get where you want to go by always looking behind you. That's a profound thought. I want you to dwell on that until we meet again in the next episode on the Inflammation Nation.